My father, Don Alberto, was a wealthy man. Our family's prosperity, centered around our estate and coffee farm in the San Juan Valley, was a thing of local legend. So were the accidents. My older brothers, one by one, taken by sudden illness, a freak riding accident, and a swift, unexplained decline. My father never spoke of it. He just grew quieter, his piety more fervent, and his donations to the local church more generous. When he died, he left me everything. And something else. A legacy I'm only now beginning to understand. I always tried to be a loyal son and a good man, but the source of our family's wealth, the shadow that hung over our riches, it always troubled me. After my father passed away, the feeling in the hacienda changed. It was always an oppressive house, but now there was a presence. Active, watchful. I'd see it from the corner of my eye. A large black dog, bigger than any regular dog, padding silently through the halls. Or sometimes, just its shadow, impossibly elongated, stretching from rooms I knew were empty. My children started having nightmares. My wife became pale and withdrawn. The whispers I'd ignored my whole life, tales of my great-grandfather and a pact made in a time of desperation, they came rushing back. A Bacá, guarding the family fortune, ensuring its continuance. At a terrible cost, my brothers' lives. I couldn't live with it. I reached out to Doña Esmeralda, a renowned curandera from the deep hills, famous for her knowledge of the old ways. I also confessed my fears, my suspicions, to Father Miguel, our local priest, a good man if initially skeptical. Doña Esmeralda patiently listened to me and then confirmed my worst fears. "Your ancestor made a vow," she said, her voice raspy. "A Bacá was summoned, bound to your bloodline to this land. It cannot be undone. The pact is absolute. If you don't comply, your wealth will disappear and your family members will die horrible deaths." Father Miguel at first spoke of prayer and faith, but as I described the escalating events, the otherworldly dog now appearing more boldly, its eyes glowing with a malevolent yellow light, a valuable stud horse found dead in its stall, twisted into an unnatural posture, his skepticism began to waver. We tried everything we could to free ourselves. Father Miguel agreed to perform an exorcism and a blessing of the house. Doña Esmeralda prepared rituals of protection, of severing. But the moment Father Miguel began to read the rites, a cold wind swept through the house even though it was locked tight. My youngest daughter, Sophia, screamed from her room with a sudden fever. That strange dog appeared at the end of the main hall, no longer just a shadow, but a solid, snarling beast, its fur bristling, its red eyes fixed on me. It wasn't just a dog. Its form seemed to shift. Thicker somehow. More bestial. Doña Esmeralda cried out, "Stop! It's too strong! The vow protects it!" That night, half our new coffee harvest, ready for picking, withered on the branch. Blackened, as if touched by a scorching frost in the tropical heat. Money I had in the safe for payroll, it was simply gone. Vanished. Sophia's fever worsened. My wife wept, begging me to make it stop. The Bacá. It appeared to me in my study, but now it was larger, a hybrid beast of shadow and muscle, its red eyes burning with an intelligence that was terrifyingly lucid. It didn't speak in words, but the understanding flooded my mind, cold and absolute. The vow is unbreakable, defy and they all pay. Starting with the girl. I can't tell you how scared I was. I really thought I was going to lose her, lose everything. My faith, my resolve, it crumbled. The next morning, I sent away Father Miguel and Doña Esmeralda, her eyes full of pity. Alone, in my father's study, I spoke the words. An affirmation. A recommitment to the vow my ancestor made. I felt something shift. A cold satisfaction in the air. Sophia's fever broke by noon. The remaining coffee crop seemed to bounce back. But the oppressive presence in the house, it didn't leave. It simply settled, content. I'm still a wealthy man. My children are safe for now. But I am damned. The Bacá is not a guardian, it's a jailer. Our fortune is its price, and we, my family, are the currency, passed down through generations. The vow really is unbreakable, and I've made sure its terrible legacy continues. Some nights, I still see the black dog watching me from the shadows, its red eyes gleaming, and I know it owns us completely. My editor wanted clicks. Find me a good local legend, he said. Something spooky, something viral. So I ended up in Tamayo, in the deep south of the Dominican Republic, chasing the ghost of Fabian Matos and his supposed Bacá guarded treasure. I'm a journalist, or trying to be, skeptical by nature and eager to debunk dusty old folklore for my online newspaper. I figured it'd be a quaint piece on local superstition. I was wrong. Tamayo is a town steeped in its own history. The legend of Fabian Matos is its most famous export, a man who supposedly made a pact with a Bacá for immense wealth that was delivered by a spectral mule laden with gold, usually to a specific shed on his property. The Bacá, they said, still guarded it. The older residents, they were hesitant to talk to me. They'd lower their voices, glance over their shoulders. They spoke of a headless donkey that drags chains, of a cow with teeth of gold, of a giant dog with the body of a pig, and always the eerie, high-pitched whistling sound that would drift through the town after midnight, especially when the notoriously unreliable power grid failed and plunged Tamayo into darkness. "It's the Bacá," they'd whisper, announcing its presence. I laughed to myself. Great atmosphere for a story. My investigation started by visiting the sites of Matos's former properties, now mostly dilapidated or built over. I interviewed Sergio Morocota's grandson, Morocota being the only supposed eyewitness to the gold-laden mule. The grandson just shrugged, said it was an old family story. Then things got weird. One evening, the power cut out and, as usual, leaving the town in total darkness. I was walking back to my small guest house by the light of my phone flashlight when I heard it. A faint, high-pitched whistling, seeming to come from all around, yet nowhere specific. Just like the legend said. My heart pounded. I told myself it was just the wind, even though there wasn't any. The next night, I went to what was left of what was supposed to be Matos's original shed. It was late, and again there was no power, but I had a better flashlight with me this time. I heard a rustling in the overgrown bushes nearby. I swept my light towards it. For a split second, I saw something. Low to the ground, bristly. Too big for a dog, too squat for a pig, but somehow both. And its eyes glowed red in the darkness before it vanished. I didn't know what to think or do. My mind just short-circuited. I tried to rationalize it. It was probably an animal, a feral pig, maybe a large dog. But the shape of it was exactly as the old folks described one of the Bacá's forms. My skepticism was eroding, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. The Bacá, if it was real, seemed to know I was there. I started feeling watched, not by people, but by the town, by the night itself. I dug deeper into local archives, dusty municipal records. I found an old, faded photograph tucked in a file. It was a blurry image of a mule standing near a dilapidated shed. On its back, clearly visible even in the poor quality, were bulging saddlebags. And next to it, a tall, shadowy figure that could have been Matos. It wasn't conclusive proof, but it sent a shiver down my spine. It was just like what Sergio Morocota told me. The whistling became more frequent on my nightly walks, and the feeling of being followed more intense. Once, near the old abandoned cinema, I definitely heard the sound of heavy chains dragging on cobblestones just around the corner. I froze and waited, but it went silent. When I peeked around the corner, there was nothing, just the empty, moonlit street. I never found any gold. I never saw Fabian Matos, but I found something else. Fear. The kind that settles deep in your bones. The kind that makes you believe in things you've spent your life dismissing. I have my notes, a few blurry pictures I took in a panic, and the photo from the archives. Enough for a really good story. But I can't write it. Not the way my editor wants. How do you report that a folktale is real? that an otherworldly guardian, a Bacá, walks the streets of Tamayo? They'd call me crazy. The mystery of Fabian Matos and his Bacá is safe. It guards its secrets, its treasure, and its town. And sometimes, late at night, even back in the city, when the wind howls just right, I think I hear that faint, high-pitched whistling. And I know, whatever it is, it remembers me. I've worked the lines in the Zona Franca textile factories near San Pedro for 20 years, seen booms and busts, seen good men lose fingers and hope. I even tried organizing the workers once back when I had more fire in my belly, but never got anywhere. So when old Manriquez's factory, La Prosperidad Textiles, suddenly went from near bankruptcy to the busiest plant in the region, I was cynical. But I needed the work. My son Carlos was just starting out and needed work too. Manriquez was always a greedy show-off, but this was different. New machinery arrived overnight. Orders poured in, and he was strutting around like a king, gold chains piled on his neck. Meanwhile, the workers, we were working double shifts, night shifts mostly. The factory hummed with a strange energy. The air inside, always hot and thick with lint from the fabric, now felt charged, heavy. Then, the accidents started. Old Ramon, who's always careful, got his arm caught in a weaving machine. It was totally mangled. The floor manager said he was careless. A week later, Anna from packing collapsed. Doctors said it was some aggressive, untreatable infection. She passed away 3 days later. These weren't just random accidents or illnesses. It seemed targeted and swift. Anyone who complained about the pace or grumbled about Manriquez's sudden fortune, they were next. The whisper went around, "Don't make waves." The night shift is when it felt worst. The noise of the machines, usually a constant roar, started to have gaps. Silences where you'd hear things, skittering sounds from the dark corners, a low growl that wasn't a faulty motor. We worked under harsh fluorescent lights, but the shadows in the aisles, near the loading docks, they seemed deeper, darker. They started whispering about a Bacá. Manriquez had made a pact, they said. Sold his soul, or maybe ours, for profit. I'm not superstitious, not really. But the fear in my coworkers' eyes, the way they'd cross themselves passing Manriquez's office, it was getting to me. One night, during a break, I was out back near the rarely used storage area C. It was always locked, and Manriquez kept the only key. That's when I heard it. A snuffling sound, then a wet, tearing sound, like an animal feeding. I peeked through a grimy window. It was too dark to see clearly, but I saw a shape. Low to the ground, bristly. It looked like a huge feral boar, but wrong. The way it moved, and its eyes, just for a second, caught the light from a distant street lamp. They were bright red. The security cameras were a joke. Whenever there were accidents, they'd conveniently glitch. Just static and distorted shadows that looked like stretched, contorted figures. Manriquez would just shrug. Faulty wiring, he'd say, smiling that greasy smile of his. The whispers got more specific. The Bacá needed to be fed. If it didn't get what it was owed before sunrise, someone paid. It couldn't leave the factory grounds, they said. Its power was tied here, strongest near Manriquez's office, and that damned storage area C. I started seeing half-eaten scraps of something near the loading docks in the early morning. Not rats. Bigger. My son, Carlos, he's young, works hard. He started looking pale, tired. More tired than the night shift should make him. He told me he heard scratching sounds from inside the walls near his station, and he saw shadows moving where no one was. I tried to talk to a supervisor, hinted that something was wrong. The next day, the main conveyor belt near my station snapped. Tons of fabric bales crashed down, missing me by inches. It wasn't an accident. It was a warning. I saw Manriquez watching me from his office window, that Bacá-bought smile on his face. He knew I suspected, and he knew I couldn't do anything about it. The pact, whatever it was, protected him. This factory, it runs on more than just electricity and cheap labor. It runs on fear. It runs on us. Now, I just keep my head down. I tell Carlos to do the same. What else can I do? We need the money. The factory keeps humming, churning out textiles, churning out Manriquez's wealth. And in the shadows, the Bacá waits. It's the price of progress, I guess, in this town. A progress built on our backs, paid for with our everything. And I have to watch every night, wondering if it's my son's turn or mine to become another accident, another offering to the factory's shadow.